Hello, welcome to the Ask Arda podcast show. I'm Elizabeth Willette, and I am a certified Rise to Realize life coach. And today, again, I'm here with Arda, the star of the show. I know you don't like when I say that, but
I think you are the star.
You are the star. You are the star. You're a teacher, you're a spiritual mentor, you're the founder of Rise to Realize, Ask Arda, investigator and author of The Art of Becoming Unstuck and the Seeker's Manual. You have done so much over the last 12 years and seen over 4,000 people and have seen people have quite the amazing life changes. And so I'm in such admiration. You taught me so much. So thank you again for doing this podcast with me.
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. It's my honor. And I'm looking at all those titles or all these accomplishments, not accomplished, but experiences. I must be mad.
You're very passionate, and that's a good thing. You're passionate.
I'm very passionate. I'm very passionate about life.
You are. And so today we're going to talk about life. And what I would like to talk about today is limiting life patterns. So as I told you, we were just talking a minute ago, and I said, after we talked last, I was thinking about limiting life patterns, and I was thinking this feeling that I have of not being good enough, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a limiting life pattern, right? But I wasn't aware of that really. And then I always try to do something more and more for somebody else and more and try to make people happy and do more. And I always feel like it's not enough. I have to do more and more and more and more. So after working with you, I decided, where's that coming from? And you're going to explain all this, but I'm just giving an example of what a limiting life pattern is. And I think it's from growing up in an alcoholic family and trying to make my father happy and doing more and doing more. And I never succeeded in doing more and more. And I've learned that it didn't work out. What I want to ask you is that didn't work out by doing more. I thought I'd save his life if I were good, if I were pretty, if I were this, if I were nice, if I, got good grades.
Yeah.
But those patterns are still in my life, a lot less now. Well, how is that people create these patterns or are influenced by people early on in their lives and have patterns that go on throughout their life, and unless they look inside, they're never aware of them. And if they do look inside, they have to figure out where they're coming from and they can change. So that's kind of like my experience. I'm fascinated by the topic. So I wanted you to address it a little bit.
Sure. I mean, when you think about that, you gave a beautiful example. So when you felt not good enough, do you remember why you felt not good enough?
Because I wasn't seeing the change I wanted to see. Like with my father?
Yes.
I was like, because I did something and I didn't see the result I thought I'd get. I had a goal in mind, Like I would make my father better. I had this thought that if I acted a certain way, he'd be better. And maybe one day I gave him something or said something, he stopped drinking for a day. So that reinforced the belief. So, if I can do that again, he'll stop drinking.
Yes. And before that, even, I don't know, how old were you then?
Oh, it was maybe it was older. Maybe I didn't realize it until I was older, but I felt special because I was with him drinking or not, but maybe it was a little older. You're right. Maybe it was not as young as I thought.
Yes. Maybe that was the third pattern that you were experiencing. Maybe that was the fifth pattern that you were experiencing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. So imagine you are 5 years old and you wanted to do something to impress your dad. You wanted to show some special painting you just drew, and you go there and your dad says, "Oh, I'm busy. I'm reading my newspaper. Don't you see? I have no time for you to look at your painting." That just little thing over there could impact you emotionally. You may think, you may feel, "Oh, I'm not seen. I'm not recognized. I am not good enough. If I were really good, he would have been interested in looking at my painting."
Right. And I think when I'm 5, I don't have all those thoughts. I just feel rejected, right? It's an emotion. I just feel, I feel rejected. right?
Rejected, disconnected, dismissed, not seen, not appreciated,
Not important,
not
right?
important, exactly, not valued, or his newspaper is more important
Right.
than I am his daughter, right? So it is complicated, but it happens to all of us.
All of us. They're all, no one's perfect. No one's ever going to treat their children perfectly. And I don't know what that would mean anyway, but explains what happened. I mean, this is everyday occurrences with people just trying to do their best as parents. But inevitably, you get wounds or scars from these interactions that you hold deep inside, right?
Correct, because it's a shock. It's a shock to the system, to your own a sense of safety.
Oh, right. Because in those things, you don't feel safe. What happens if you don't feel safe as a child?
You close up. So what happens to a child who gets made fun of, right? So that child is not going to go out and socialize a lot. That child is going to be more introverted and withdrawn from society.
Right. Or I remember getting made fun of in school in second grade because I had some curly Q thing on my hat. And I just tried to be better the next time. I did what the kids said. I took the hat off. I tried to be normal. I tried to do this. I tried to do what everybody wanted me to do so I would fit in.
Yes, that is the other option. Because we live in this society and with always this conundrum of the duality, like either that or that. We are always between those two polarities, good or bad, or introvert or extrovert. We miss the whole shades of personalities in between. And when we are reacting, when we are responding to that shock, that emotional shock, the impression that we got from our dad, from our parents, from our mom, from our teachers, from our friends, that impression stays with us. It forms the thought patterns we have about ourselves. That's why I call them like repressed feelings, repressed fears, in a sense, because these are like thoughts of ourselves, our image. Yes, either we're gonna not socialize or we're gonna socialize and try to fit in.
Right.
Either or. We cannot be in between. We cannot be nonchalant about this. We are always reacting to it. But the point is, reacting to what? The way they treated us.
Sure. Or
So
the reactions we got when we asked something, right?
Exactly. We asked something, we wanted to share something, we did something, we wanted to be proud of certain things, and it just backlashed. We got a negative response.
Yeah, and so you've mentioned some things in your life when you were younger. Can you bring anything out that created a pattern for you?
Yeah, many things. Like I remember when I was 7 years old, I was at a summer camp. And at that time, until that time, probably 5, 6, 7, I was very happy, very what you call it, jovial and social,
happy-go-lucky kind of kid.
Yeah, happy-go-lucky kind of kid. And I was at the summer camp, which everybody kind of finds themselves falling in love with someone, because it's just the first time you are in a co-ed situation, you are mingling with the girls, and I had some interest in this girl. And then at one of the nights when there was a little dancing for the kids, 7-year-old kids, I just went over and started dancing with her. Obviously, still you're interested in the opposite sex, but you're still hanging out with your own, kind of boys, just the guys. So everybody made fun of me. Of you? Of me dancing. Yes. And I felt maybe I was dancing funny. Maybe I shouldn't have been talking to her. Maybe I shouldn't be on the stage. That attention that I received in a negative sense, in a negative way, affected me. And I'm just like, no, I'm not going to get attention anymore. So more and more I got quieter, and more I became less courageous to interact with others, be on the center stage, receive the attention from others, because then I was just trembling anytime I had that kind of situation at school. Somebody, wants me to do a speech or present this and that. I was always super anxious.
You were worried about what other people thought. Did that continue on that exactly?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Today, even when we are doing this podcast, I'm thinking what others will think about my words. And if I let it, now I've done so much work, obviously. So if I let that thought overtake, my words will start to jumble up with random thoughts, and everything will go sideways. So it is.
You've been able to conquer that. You've been able to conquer that, but how? So we all have these life patterns, but how did you conquer that so you can actually succeed without being introverted and not daring? How did you dare?
So first, you want to become aware of why you are having these patterns in your life. So life is woven by patterns.
Right.
Right.
You see them more and more. They're all over.
All over.
It's like in a basket, you do basket weaving. We're all like part of that basket. That's our life, right?
Exactly. In that basket, in that woven straws, what is in there? When you think about it, what is in there in the core of life? It's relationships.
Right. Weaving together
from one relationship to another. You keep going and changing relationships. I'm not talking about romantic or even professional. Everyday relationships, even the relationships with your grocery store manager, the owner, or the person that you deal with who brings the milk to you, or whatever, just like a random on the street, helping someone, or somebody's asking you for directions. Everything in life is woven through relationships. And when you look at these relationships, the way you are responding to relationships is the pattern.
Okay.
So then you start to receive certain feedback, and that reinforces the feeling of repeating patterns in your life. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
So wherever company you go, you will have that colleague that you butt head all the time. Whatever company you are, you will attract that micromanaging boss. Whatever whoever you date, you will run into the people who have difficulty in committing. Right? It just one after another.
For me, I can see that I attract people, or I'm more comfortable with people who I like, they're needy, or I not, I don't want to say my friends are needy, but I often attract people like I want to give them more, and I want to give them more, and I want to give them more, right?
Yes.
In spite of my own self.
Yes.
Like I would not give love to myself, but others, everyone else, give. And that's something that I habitually do. And the people I interact with, those are the people I am attracted to.
Yes. And here's something I noted. I mean, if you don't mind, if you are just giving, does that remind you of what you just shared with us? Absolutely. About your dad?
And I didn't realize that before, but it's kind of like kind of different issues, but very interconnected, right?
Very interconnected. So that behavior pattern that you acquired to feel safe, if I can change my dad, then I can be happy. If he comes back and we connect at a deeper level, right? He becomes sober, or he becomes more personable. He becomes a little bit more loving. That's when I can feel safe. That's when I can feel loved. That's when I feel warmth of life. That's when I feel happy, right? So that's when your survival mechanism starts to kick in. That's how you are treating people. So you're surrounded by people who need your love, who need your care, who need your attention. So therefore you're giving, deep down hoping that everything is going to be much more connection, much more meaningful, the one that you were craving for with your dad.
Right. So what's reminding me also, and the reason I called you in the first place several years ago, was I had all this anxiety. I was so sick, like I was having really bad anxiety. And we went through the practice. And after talking with you a while, I realized that a lot of my anxiety is not being able to stand up for myself and not knowing how to communicate, because I was so afraid the other person would be mad at me, be angry. And I just didn't know how to act or react. And I've learned those communication skills. And I've also learned that if it doesn't matter what people think of me. I mean, in a way it does, but it doesn't to the fact that if they're going to be angry, it's not because I'm bad. It's maybe it wasn't the right fit. So you look at all these patterns, but first I had to suffer. I had to feel like, oh my God, I cannot go on like this. And I think that was like the thing that said, hey, you got to look at this. What's going on? And that's where you helped me immensely.
Yes, what you know what I call that?
Wow.
You answered the call. You answered the call of life, because think about life is always in communication with you in a way that these experiences are coming your way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because all these experiences, think about, you are in the middle of a river and the river is flowing towards you. You are not going anywhere. You are not stepping forward. You're not stepping aside. You're just standing there, and all sorts of things are flowing, and you are just, it's a gentle river. Sometimes it gets, a little wilder, but just the kind of, and then you're looking at things, the objects that are coming your way, and you build a relationship with these objects. That is what happens with life. We think we are going forward upstream, and some people try to do that, and they spend a lot of energy on walking upstream, and they feel exhausted, and they know after a while, because they're going against their patterns, against their life stream, then they start to feel stuck because they realize they haven't gone anywhere.
That's right. Right. And it's such an awful feeling to feel. And I think I told you once, I felt like I was stuck in a box, right? I'm in a box. I was just so stuck, which goes back to your book, The Art of Becoming Unstuck, which was it spoke to me, that book.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, exactly. In that book, we talk about the sandbags. What are the sandbags?
Right. All those things that weigh you down, all the things you haven't looked at, all those patterns, emotions, feelings, right?
Yes. So we are talking a little bit interchangeably what a pattern is and what a repressed feeling is, right? So the repressed feeling could be, I am not worth.
Right.
Again, based on an original incident that I experienced back in the days. I didn't have the tools to process it, so I tuck it away, and it felt awful, right? And the subconscious says, don't worry, you're not going to experience that. I'm going to hide that, right? The subconscious survival mechanism, it didn't feel safe, and I don't want you to experience that again, ever. Okay? Boom.
Does the subconscious try to trick you, or is it just a survival mechanism? It's like a
survival.
Survival. Don't worry about that. We'll put it away over here.
Yes. So that's why actually, even I think ego right? Ego is not a bad thing. It
Right.
wouldn't, right?
Protects you.
Protects you.
Safety, what we're all looking for, right?
Exactly. If I'm grabbing this like a plate, lunch plate in front of my colleague, and I want to eat that, and it is my ego, driving me to earn more and this and that. It's not that I am a bad person and I'm trying to harm the other person. I am just trying to eat that lunch because I am starving.
Right.
Right. My ego says you need to get it. And so that's the survival. And because of that, it's so individualistic. And due to the fact that it is so individualistic and disregards others, it has a bad rap. Okay. But it is completely driven from what is repressed. Okay. So if I have a repressed feeling or fear that I am not worth, I can, like you did before, I can either go out there and try to prove that I have a worth, right? I work really hard. I can, put everybody out of my field. I go in there and be competitive and try to prove that I am worth. I have worth. I have my self-worth. Or I would say, you know what? I'm so broken. My ego says this is a fight that we are not going to take on because it's very unsafe. You know how your dad beat you up all the time? By the way, it's not my dad, but it's just too much. You know what? I'm a loser. I'm just going to go back.
In both scenarios, you feel empty inside. You're still empty. You still don't have that worth. I mean, you could be pretending or not pretending. It's still empty. It's just, it's not like I believed that I could, like, I'm so great, I'm going to continue. I didn't believe that at all. It was a behavioral mechanism, something that I just was comfortable with.
100%. Either way, you are actually fighting with that repressed feeling of I am not worth. And that's when that you tuck away, and coming back to this, life is trying to communicate with you. Doesn't have the language that you can really understand the way we are speaking. Life doesn't talk to you. The way life communicates to you, with you, is through your life experiences. So back to the river is coming at you and you are looking at it. Oh my God, it's the same shit. It's the same shit. It's the same shit. Oh my God, what is going on? I feel stuck. And that's when you answer the call. Some of us answer the call in a sense that, oh, I'm going to numb even more. So where is my coping mechanisms? Right? But some people say, you know what, I'm not going to take any drugs. I'm not going to take alcohol. I'm not going to overeat. I'm not going to push this down. I'm going to now address, because it's time. I am exhausted. I have to address this. And that is the first step of becoming aware of your patterns, because the life you're living is trying to tell you that there is something repressed that you need to address to live a better life.
So Arda, you've worked with a lot of people. Once you discover these limiting life patterns, do you see change in people?
100%. Like, you know what happened in this podcast? And by the way, I want to really highlight this. We don't rehearse these.
No.
Right? You said something, and this is the beauty of life. You and I have been working for a couple of years, and you know what? You said something about your dad, and then you said something about your friends. And I said, Elizabeth, it is so interesting that could it be that it is the same pattern of behavior that you're trying to maybe prove yourself, trying to be happy, trying to be recognized, trying to be valuable to your dad, and you are basically showing the same pattern of behavior with your friend. And what did you say? What did you say?
I said, I never thought of it, but yeah, right, exactly. And just to add one more thing, I'm afraid people are I was afraid my father would get angry. So I'd be like, So I just learned a third piece of that puzzle just by talking to you on this podcast, that I was doing more and more and more. And if I like stood up, then he'd get angry and then I'd be shut out. So I was doing the same thing with my friends, right?
Exactly. We are mirrors. Like, again, I am mirror in my sessions, and you are learning. So you're an amazing coach. You have become an amazing coach because you are adopting this 5-step power process into your life and seeing the results. So you are going out there, and when you are putting that mirror back to them, they never look at it, because you remember, initially they wanted to take away. The subconscious is 95% of the time in charge of our lives, right? So subconscious fight or flight response system, survival mechanism is running our life. Doesn't want to address anything. Doesn't want to look at it. No introspection, right?
Right.
So when somebody comes to you, when somebody comes to me, all I'm doing is listening.
Yeah. And
What
asking questions and listening, asking questions.
Yes.
Because I do believe we have the answers inside, but sometimes you need to be guided inside to
Exactly. Exactly. All is so much driven through the client. What we are doing is I have created this 5-step Rise to Realize power process. Okay, with my experience of 15 years with over 4,000 people, right? Because I wanted to know if there were a system. I wanted to know if there are these limiting life patterns. I wanted to know why people felt stuck. I wanted to know why people were unhappy, and realize that these patterns make people unhappy. So the whole 5-step Rise to Realize power process is designed to help people to break free from those patterns. But first step, like you're asking, if you don't know that you're in a pattern, how are you going to break it?
Right. It's that whole knowledge of it. I didn't come up and say, oh, I have all these patterns. And, you're like, well, look back. Oh, that's a pattern. Oh, I see this one. I see this one. I see this one. As soon as you become aware of that, awareness is key.
Awareness is key. And you and I talked about, I think it was the second episode where we talked about the consciousness building, the level of consciousness, a scale of consciousness as a 10-story building, right? Most of us, we don't want to get into that building. It's just too scary to face everything. I mean, Elizabeth, you understand this, and I really want everybody to understand, in the world, it is scary. You are okay the way you are. You're trying to survive. It's okay not to introspect. It's okay not to look at your patterns until you have to.
Until you have to. And there's a point you just have to, because you don't feel happy. And Arda, I've really tried other methods, other therapies, other techniques. Not only is the 5-step power process really important, but I can't tell you enough how much the communication skills that you've come up with have helped me and my clients, because you can understand that. But if you don't have the words or the knowledge about how to approach things, you're still stuck. They go hand in hand. And I really believe that.
They are. Thank you for bringing that up, because I want to tie that to what you said about I didn't have boundaries. And then you started, once you became aware of your patterns, and once you understood how these patterns came about in your life, right? That was your repressed feeling. That was the repressed fear that was creating these impressions from the situations, from the interactions with people, right? That's what created the patterns. Once you understood them, you were in the building now, the scale of consciousness, the consciousness building, right? So the communication, 9 communication strategies. Guess what?
Oh, we're up to 9 now. Oh, sorry, I said
7.
up to 9, right? 7
Yes,
to 9.
because it's a 10-story building and the 10th floor, you don't need any communication. At the highest consciousness level, you are just you. You don't need to communicate and everything actually flows at a highest flow, highest potential. But every communication strategy has a different energy to it so that it corresponds to your own consciousness level.
Right.
Right? In order to break a pattern, you cannot be immediately compassionate to someone because the compassion is floor 7.
Right.
You just entered the building. You cannot run up to the 6th floor. You will be completely exhausted.
Yeah.
Right? And you may show a compassion to someone. You may be compassionate to someone's situation or the way they communicated to you. You try to understand them. You try to empathize with their situation. And then when they don't respond to you the way you want it, back to the reaction.
Right. And so I like that you said back to the reaction, because how do you know you have patterns that you need to work on? You get triggered, right, by something. You go anxiety, anger, sadness, something happens. You're just like all like tight, and oh, that's a sign. It's like, hello, sign, look inside, hold on. There's something there, right?
Exactly. Elizabeth, that is the signpost that you are in a pattern. An emotional reaction. Whenever you have an emotional reaction, you are in the pattern.
That's right. I love that, because I do that. And when I get anxious, I'm like, okay, pattern. What was I thinking before this? Pause, observe, and then you go through it, and it helps so much. Honestly, it really does.
Yes, exactly. That's when you want to stop. That's when you want to pause everything and step back and look inside. What kind of thoughts are running through your mind because you are having or contributing to your emotional reaction? But what do we do? Actually, when we are emotionally reacting, what do we do? Instead of looking into our thoughts that created the emotions, what do we do?
We go outside, we blame, we react, we yell, it's an outside reaction and not an inward. We go outward.
Exactly.
Right.
We defend ourselves. We try to push them away.
Yeah.
Because we feel attacked.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and the other thing I want to say is that with your guidance, I've found that there are so many ways to view one situation that if you open yourself up to other perspectives, it's so helpful and freeing. I thought everybody thought that. I thought everybody thought that way. I thought everybody, because you're attracting people that do think the way you do. So everybody's stuck in some sort of pattern that you attract. And then you go to somebody like you and you're like, well, have you ever thought of this or this or that? You're like, oh my goodness, I have a choice to act differently. I don't have to follow those patterns of what I was taught. That was mind blowing for me.
Yeah, that is a level. You're somewhere in the building, in the 2nd floor, 3rd floor, right? Because you are now having a better visibility into what's happening. When you're not in the building, completely blind, going through life, you're in the matrix, completely stuck in your patterns. And you just know only one way.
Only one way.
Only one way.
So to people listening, there are so many ways to view one situation. And if you can just adopt another perspective, that will bring you more open to other perspectives. And then you might not even have a judgment on something. You just may be able to understand everybody's perspective.
Exactly. You're talking now about like 6th floor, 7th floor kind of level.
I'm getting up there. I don't stay up there, but the view is definitely better from the 6th floor.
Absolutely. Elizabeth, one more thing. Maybe today, before we close our session, maybe we can invite everybody to the 1st floor. Just invite everybody to the building, invite everybody to embark on their journey of self-discovery so that they can start rising in the scale of consciousness. What would you say our first communication strategy? Because like you said, you keep responding to life the same way, right? And because of that, life keeps telling you or bringing more and more, right? More and more of same stuff. And
So
you're,
you mentioned that because I'm like, you wake up and it's Groundhog's Day. Did you see that movie Groundhog's
yes, I
Day?
saw that. Oh
You
my
wake
God.
up and it's like over and over and over and over. So how do you break that pattern? You do something different. You react differently. And I tell so many people, they're like, well, I don't know how else to react. Well, how do you usually react, Arda?
Right? How do you usually react? And then what else can you do? I try to do the opposite, right? Just the opposite.
Do the
Just
opposite.
just try to do opposite, and whatever that is to you. No one has anything to say about that because it is you deciding. But in order to do that, you need to obviously stop the train. You need to take the pause. You need to pause, you need to stop the train and then decide, okay, I've been saying this, I've been doing this, I've been demanding this, I've been asking for this. Okay, how about not doing that? Or I've been angry, how about maybe getting more frustrated but less angry, or maybe respond to it differently than anger. Instead of shouting, leave the room. If you are leaving the room, maybe this time shout in that anger. Instead of doing passive aggressive gossiping, maybe don't say anything.
Don't say anything and see how it feels. And even with members of my own family, instead of saying, you know, I think you should do something, and that gets a reaction, I'm like, why do I even say that? I'm like, what do you think about this? And questioning, and questions, open-ended questions that are curious.
Exactly.
That changes the whole dynamic. Right. The whole dynamic.
Yes. And again, you're obviously a higher consciousness, and you're an amazing coach for that, because you have so much, you have realized about yourself so much. You can observe yourself, right? Observe yourself when you are asking that you should do this, knowing that it's gonna cause some reaction from the other person. So you can actually stop the train right there, break the pattern, getting into yet another argument, right?
Right. Or have the other person just shut off and not listen to me. I've learned that do it differently if you want a different reaction, and you'd be surprised, shocked even, that the other person will react differently if you do something, if you do the opposite or something different.
Exactly. And the definition of, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results, right? I think it is Einstein's quote. So the invitation to the building, to the first floor, is try to do something different when you become aware of your emotional reactions. That time is the time your self-discovery journey starts, and the journey on the ladder of consciousness. I love it, Arda. Thank you so much for your time today. It's just so fascinating again, and I always learn something. I always learn something new. Thank you so much. And until next time, and please take the invitation and let us know how it goes. Awesome. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's so fun doing this with you. Thank you. Thank you.